I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-Minute Convos, where I help you create a brand of your own unique real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good day, Wade Roush. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful day?
I'm doing great, and I'm taking particular delight in my new puppy who is playing in the background with a yogurt cup, so you might hear some cracking around.
That's wonderful. It definitely adds another layer to the conversation, doesn't it?
It really does. As long
What
as you know what's going on, that's where the noise is coming from, but it's a good reason.
what part of the world are you in right now? Well, both you and the puppy.
I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I went to school here, and I've had a couple of jobs here, and a lot of my friends are in the Boston area, and this is a really good place to be a science journalist, a technology journalist, and an audio producer, which those are my things.
Ooh, is that one of the talents why we have connected today?
Yeah, so I've been a journalist for a long time, specializing in writing about science and technology. And I think that we connected on LinkedIn because you saw that I had recently started using some of the same skills to do audio production. So I'm now a podcaster, and I make a show about technology called Soonish.
Yeah, great. Welcome, family, podcast, family. Love it. You're doing an amazing job there. Well, do tell us tell us what inspired you to start the podcast.
Well, I've been a journalist for a long time, but mostly focusing on writing, text-based communication for magazines and for websites. And over the years, I just got more and more jealous of what the folks in my profession were able to do, the ones who were doing radio instead of, magazine or newspaper or web work, had all these extra tools available to them. When you're working in sound, you can use the human voice, you can use music, you can use sound design, you can use environmental sound to add to the power of your storytelling. And I realized that I was getting so jealous of that those powers, and I decided to go and explore them myself. So I got some help from some good friends, some radio reporters, some friends of mine who volunteered to help train me on the technology. And for the last year or two, I've been focusing on that exclusively and trying to get good at it.
What's your puppy's name?
My puppy is named Gryphon.
Gryphon seems to be getting better with the cup. Oh. So you've done podcasting now. I really love the content that you have there on Soonish. Who designed the logo artwork for your podcast?
I hired a designer here in Cambridge named Wing Nan, and he is an awesome designer who works on all sorts of corporate branding and identity stuff. He's done a lot of work for MIT, where I used to be a student and an employee and a teacher. And so I hired him, and he came up with this concept for the Soonish logo where the letters are kind of poking out from behind these lines. So it looks almost like each letter is like a rising sun coming out from behind a horizon. So I thought the concept really worked.
Yeah, and the bike. Who decided to put the bike in the logo?
The bike is the brand identity sort of mini logo for Hub and Spoke, which is a podcast collective that I helped to start this year. And my show Soonish is one of 3 shows in this collective, each of which will use that branding on their own logos.
All right.
The bike was developed as a logo by a different designer, and we're kind of combining our brands in a way and helping to promote each show in the network by mentioning each other in our shows. And as you know, like the best way to get new traffic to your own show is to talk to the producers of other shows who might have similar audiences and get them to cross promote. So that's why we created Hub and Spoke, and that's what that little bicycle stands for.
All right. So now that you have begun podcasting and you're doing an amazing job of that, why will you continue to repeat this skill?
Well, like I was saying, for me, podcasting is like the most powerful way that I've found yet to tell the kinds of stories that I want to tell. I'm interested in the future and what the future will look like. And in particular, I'm interested in how technology will shape the future. But I think most people have a sense that technology and the way technology progresses is sort of beyond their control. It just happens. And I'm of the opposite persuasion. I think that technology is a human phenomenon, and we control which way it develops through thousands of decisions that we make, big and small, every day, as consumers, as voters, as citizens. You don't have to be an engineer or a capitalist, right, to be able to make a decision about what kinds of technology you're going to use in your daily life. So that's what the show is about. I'm looking for stories about how technology fits into our lives and how the decisions we make about that will shape the way the future looks. And there are so many of those types of stories to tell, and I'm just having a huge amount of fun telling them.
What's one other thing, Wade, you've done consistently over the last 3 years?
I've been thinking more deeply about storytelling in general. So I feel like when I was a text writer, I got kind of into a rut, writing the same types of stories over and over again. And starting 2 or 3 years ago, I decided to just kind of try to relearn how to tell stories and how to craft my ideas into narratives that would really be fun for people to listen to. So I have been going to conferences and reading everything I can get my hands on, and trying to relearn from scratch at mid-career what makes a good story. And I've been practicing that, every week. I've been getting involved in on-stage sort of true life storytelling of the sort of in the style of The Moth, and trying to get good at that. And I think it all is feeding back into the types of stories that I'm able to tell for the podcast. So it's kind of through a circle.
That's amazing. I think it also connects to your circle in terms of it coming full circle around, and that you're determining your future by creating the platform that you desire by your choice. Just like you spoke about with technology, right? We get to determine a lot. How does it make you feel doing this?
It makes me feel incredibly energized. I'm 50. I turned 50 a year ago, and I launched my podcast the same week. And in a way, it was strange to make such a drastic career switch at that age, and it was a little scary. But it's been really fun and energizing for me to kind of set the clock back to zero and to learn this new form of storytelling. And the effects have been pretty wonderful. It's forced me to go back and rethink how I tell all sorts of stories, including the freelance print and online stories that I write. And it's given me a chance to meet a whole new group of people. The world of audio and radio and podcasting is an incredibly vibrant one, especially here in Boston. And I found it to be incredibly welcoming. So I have a whole group of new friends as well, and that's been awesome.
That's great. Suggest to someone that's listening, Wade, someone that may be just on the cusp of 50, why they should do what you've done by reinventing yourself, if you would.
Well, okay, so I think that because technology is advancing so quickly and changing the nature of lots of jobs, changing the nature of work itself, everyone is going to have to be facing the possibility that they'll need to reinvent themselves or learn a new skill at some point. So being ready to make a big mid-career switch and go and retrain yourself, I think is going to be an essential skill, an essential willingness. If you want to, keep working until retirement age, or just scrap the idea of retirement altogether and keep working as long as you want, you're going to need a rewarding, interesting, challenging job. But because the types of jobs available to us are shifting as we give more and more of the sort of routine work to machines and computers, the value is going to be kind of shifting upward, and the stuff that humans are good at will change. The stuff that is worth doing for humans will change. So we're all going to need to reinvent ourselves, and that's why I think what I'm doing is in some small, tiny way an example of that.
Amazing audience, you're hearing it live here from Wade Roush. Again, he is the podcast host, amongst other things, of Soonish, the podcast. That's Soonish, Soonish. Soonish. Wade, let's switch gears for a moment now, and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Wade, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Well, it's not an entirely happy one. I was kind of sick a lot as a young kid, and had the bad luck of getting like 3 or 4 of the regular childhood infections all at once. So my earliest memory is actually of being in the children's ward in the hospital, and remembering like waking up alone at night, because this was the era before parents were allowed to stay overnight in the hospital with their kids and feeling really alone and kind of scared. But then having my parents show up in the morning and coming back and comforting me. And I was probably only like 2 or 3 years old when that happened.
How do you see that memory connecting to who you are today?
Oh, good question. That's a hard one. I think that my parents are great. And it was always so comforting to me, at that toddler stage for them to show up and reaffirm their love. And my family is still incredibly close. And I think that, some bonds were created then that have lasted me my whole life.
Can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Yeah, please do.
I love the idea of the understanding of you are going to be alone. And the decisions you make, as much as they are connected to others, should be fueled by your selfish desire, if you would, or the truth that the decisions you make impact yourself first. Of course, the willingness to serve others is important, but just realizing that your decisions impact you first. And I'm saying that based on one friend that went through a motorcycle accident and a lot happened to him, and he was in the hospital for an average of 6 months. And he told me one day that being in the hospital, there was a point in time where he realized that he needed to forget family and he needed to release them and how they felt. And he had to get a grip on himself to understand that he needed to get out of this hole that he was in. And I say that in alignment with the thought picture you created in my mind.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. And I do think that we are all, in the end, responsible for our own happiness and really can't ask anyone else to create happiness and well-being for us. So yeah, thanks. That's a really illustrative connection.
You're welcome. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
This is going to show my inner geek, but I loved the soundtrack album from Star Wars, which came out in 1977 when I was 10. So at age 12, I think I was still playing that record every day.
Love it. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Wade?
I'm ready.
Wade, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Well, not just one person, but I'm very active in the community of science and technology journalists and audio producers around Boston. So I'm hoping to pass my skills on to that community.
Are you married?
No.
Do you have children?
No.
Do you believe in God?
No.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes, very much. Very great friends.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I wish, but no.
How about 3 hours a week?
Yeah, maybe 3, 4, 5 hours a week.
What about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
It's more.
If you, Wade, had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents Wade Roush, what would you say that is?
Okay, well, I think that everyone's lives can be richer and more interesting when they understand how science and technology shape our world and keep shaping our world. And like I said before, a lot of people feel like technological change is something that just happens to them and that they can't control it. But that's not true. And if we learn how technology works and how all of the human choices that go into the way technology evolves are under our control, then we can take more control over those choices in our own lives. And I love to tell stories that help people understand that.
Wade Roush, this was a great pleasure. Thank you, my friend, for being on What is Inspired. Or in fact, is there anything else you'd like to share, Wade, before I do that?
I guess I would just say that if people want to find my show, they can go to the website. It's at soonishpodcast.org. And as I mentioned, I'm part of a network of independent podcasts called Hub and Spoke. And the listeners can find out more about all of our shows at hubspokeaudio.org.
There we go. Wade Roush, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Thank you so much, Angel. This was really a delight.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mounting pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.